Welcome to Module 5. This is what looks like a perfectly normal business dinner. Nice restaurant, professional atmosphere, important client conversation happening at the next table. What you're looking at is the most dangerous part of any business trip. Not the flight that might get delayed, not the hotel room that might have problems. This is the business meal. More careers have been destroyed over restaurant receipts than any other single type of business expense, and it's not because people are ordering expensive meals, it's because they don't understand the psychology behind meal expenses. Let me tell you about Andrea. Andrea was a marketing coordinator at a software company. Smart, hardworking, great future ahead of her. Her first business trip was to a trade show in Las Vegas. 3 days, lots of networking, potential clients to meet. Day 1, Andrea had a great day at the trade show. That evening, she met up with a potential client for dinner. Good conversation, promising business relationship, exactly what her company wanted her to do. The restaurant was nice, the client chose it. Dinner for 2 came to $180 including drinks. Andrea had 2 glasses of wine during the 3-hour conversation, and the client had a cocktail and a beer. Professional, reasonable, appropriate for the setting. Andrea felt good about the meal. She built a relationship, advanced business interests, and kept the conversation professional. She submitted her expense report without a second thought. A week later, Andrea got an email from her manager. Can we discuss your Las Vegas dinner expense? I have some questions. In the meeting, Andrea's manager asked, can you tell me about this $180 dinner? Andrea explained, client meeting, business development, relationship building, potential future sales. Her manager's response, I see alcohol charges here. Our policy requires pre-approval for client entertainment involving alcohol. Also, $90 per person seems high for a first meeting with a prospect. Andrea tried to explain that the client chose the restaurant, that the conversation was productive, that alcohol was part of the professional hospitality. And her manager said, Andrea, this tells me you either didn't read our entertainment policies or you chose to ignore them. Either way, that's concerning. The $180 dinner expense was denied. Andrea had to pay it back personally. But more importantly, her manager now questioned her judgment and policy compliance. When a position opened up later that involved more client interaction, Andrea wasn't considered. Her manager's feedback still has concerns about following protocols and business judgment. Same dinner, same client, same business value, but what if Andrea had sent this email before the meeting? Hello, manager, I'm meeting with the Peterson Group prospect tomorrow night for dinner. They suggested Morton's Steakhouse. Should I get a pre-approval for entertainment expenses? And what's our guideline for client alcohol policy? That one email would have changed everything. It shows policy awareness, proactive communication, and respect for the company's guidelines. Here's what Andrea didn't understand, and what most people don't understand about meal expenses. They're not really about the food. They're about judgment, priorities, and self-control. When your manager reviews meal expenses, they're asking, does this person understand appropriate business spending? Can they maintain professionalism in social settings? Do they prioritize business objectives over personal enjoyment? And will they represent our company appropriately with clients? Every meal choice is a character assessment. Let's start with the basics: meal limits and per diem policies. Most companies have daily meal allowances, maybe $15 for breakfast, $25 for lunch, $40 for dinner. These aren't suggestions, they're limits. If you go over, you typically only get reimbursed up to the limit. Spend $35 on lunch, get reimbursed $25, pay the difference yourself. But here's the psychology. Even if you're willing to pay the overage personally, submitting over limit expenses sends a message about your judgment and cost consciousness. I've seen people consistently submit meals that are $5 to $10 over the daily limits. They pay the overage, so they think that's fine. Their managers see it differently. Why is this person consistently making choices that exceed our guidelines? Do they not understand budgets? Are they prioritizing personal preferences over business efficiency? Stay within limits or have really good business reason for exceeding them. Now, meal limits often vary by location. $40 for dinner might be reasonable in Des Moines, but impossible in Manhattan. Most companies adjust limits by city or have approval processes for high-cost locations. Know these policies before you travel. And understand that I couldn't find anything cheaper isn't usually a valid excuse. With smartphone apps, you can find appropriate restaurants anywhere. Let's talk about the most dangerous part of the meal expenses: alcohol. This is where good people destroy their careers, and it's not about drinking too much, though that can definitely be a problem. It's about not understanding company policies and professional boundaries. Alcohol policies vary widely by company. Some companies prohibit alcohol entirely in business trips. Some allow 1 drink with dinner. Some allow alcohol only for client entertainment. Some have different rules for different employee levels. Some require pre-approval for any alcohol-related expenses. You absolutely must know your company's specific policy, and if you're unsure, assume no alcohol is allowed. I know someone who got fired for expensing a single beer with dinner, not because he was drunk, Not because he misbehaved, but because his company had a zero-tolerance policy for alcohol expenses, and he didn't know about it. $8 beer, $120,000 salary, gone. Client entertainment with alcohol is especially tricky. Even if your company allows it, you're walking a tightrope. Order alcohol before your client does, looks unprofessional. Refuse alcohol when your client is drinking, it might seem antisocial. Drink more than your client, definitely unprofessional. Drink when your client doesn't, that's poor judgment. The safest approach, let the client lead, match their pace and drink less. Never drink more than 2 drinks regardless of the setting, and always maintain professional composure. Now let's talk about documentation, because this is where some people get sloppy and create their own problems. For solo meals while traveling, you usually just need the receipt and maybe the business purpose, dinner, Chicago client meetings. But for business entertainment, meals with clients, prospects, or colleagues, the documentation requirements are much stricter. You typically need who attended, names and companies, business purpose, what was discussed, the business relationship, client, prospect, or partner, the date, location, and amount, and the original itemized receipt. I've seen people get their entertainment expenses rejected because they wrote client dinner without listing the client's name, or they wrote the client's name but didn't explain the business purpose. Here's good documentation. Dinner with John Smith, Peterson Group prospect, discussed Q1 software implementation needs and service requirements, potential $50,000 opportunity, attendees, John Smith, Peterson Group, Sarah Johnson, our company. Clear business purpose, clear attendees, clear business value. Compare that to dinner with client with no other details. Same meal, same business value, completely different professional impression. But what about eating alone while traveling? This seems simple, but there are psychological landmines here too. Eating alone, you have complete control over cost and venue choices. This is actually a test of your judgment and cost consciousness. Choose reasonable priced restaurants, avoid obviously expensive places unless there's a business reason, and be mindful that your solo meal choices reflect your priorities. I've seen someone consistently choose the most expensive restaurant near their hotel for solo dinners. Not illegal, it's not against policy, but it created a pattern that suggested poor cost judgment. Their manager's feedback said, shows a pattern of choosing personal preference over cost efficiency. But what about room service versus restaurant dining? Room service has huge markups, often 200 to 300% over restaurant prices, plus delivery fees and tips. That $15 burger becomes a $35 expense line item. More importantly, room service suggests you prioritize personal convenience over cost efficiency. Room service is sometimes justified when you're working through dinner, or you have back-to-back calls, or you're genuinely too busy to leave the hotel, but document it. Room service due to client calls from 6 to 9 p.m. International travel adds complexity to meal expenses. Different currencies, different tipping customs, different business dining norms. In some cultures, expensive business meals are expected and refusing them would be insulting. In others, modest meals are the norm and excess would be inappropriate. Research beforehand. What are the business dining customs in Tokyo versus London versus Sao Paulo? What's considered appropriate business entertainment? And understand currency conversion issues. Your credit card company charges foreign transaction fees. Conversion rates fluctuate and documentation becomes more complex. What about group meals with colleagues? This gets complicated because now you're managing multiple people's food choices and alcohol consumption. If you're the senior person or trip organizer, you might be expected to handle the bill, but you're also responsible for ensuring everyone's behavior and choices are appropriate. Set expectations up front. We're having dinner as a team, and let's be mindful of our meal limits and alcohol policy. And pay attention to what your colleagues are ordering. If someone's getting expensive wine or multiple drinks, you might need to have a discreet conversation. What about special dietary needs, allergies, religious restrictions, medical requirements? These are legitimate business considerations. If you have celiac disease and need a gluten-free option that costs more, that's reasonable. If you keep kosher and need to find specific restaurants, that's appropriate. But document it. Gluten-free meal options due to medical dietary restrictions or kosher restaurant required for religious compliance. This shows the expense difference isn't about personal preference, but legitimate business accommodation. Now let's talk about meal timing because this trips up a lot of people. When does your business trip start for meal expense purposes? When you leave your house? When your plane takes off? When you arrive at your destination? Most companies don't cover meals before your trip officially begins or after it officially ends, even if it's on the same day. If you're flying out at 2 p.m., that 8 a.m. breakfast at home isn't reimbursable. Landing at 8 p.m. and going straight home, that 9 p.m. dinner stop isn't covered. But if you have a 6 a.m. flight and need to leave home by 4 a.m., breakfast at the airport might be legitimate. The key is understanding your company's specific travel day policies and not pushing the boundaries. Let me tell you about some meal and entertainment disasters I've witnessed. Someone expensed a $300 dinner for one because they wanted to try the tasting menu at a Michelin star restaurant. Someone bought drinks for an entire bar full of strangers because they were networking at a conference. And someone else expensed their spouse's meal when the spouse joined them for the business portion of the trip. All of these people were terminated, not for the dollar amounts, for the judgment demonstrated by their choices. But let me end with another success story. Carlos was a sales associate who traveled frequently for client meetings. He developed a system. Before every business meal, he'd research the restaurant, check prices against meal limits, and plan his order in advance. For client entertainment, he'd always send a pre-approval email. My meeting with client tomorrow at such and such restaurant. Based on their menu, I estimate $40 to $50 per person, including one drink each. This aligns with our entertainment guidelines, correct? His managers noticed his proactive approach, and in his performance reviews, they consistently messaged his excellent cost management and professional judgment. Carlos got promoted partly because his expense management demonstrated the kind of judgment they wanted in senior roles. So, here's your meal and entertainment survival guide. 1. Know your meal limits and alcohol policies exactly. 2. Get pre-approval for any client entertainment involving alcohol. 3. Document business meals with attendees, purpose, and business value. 4. Choose restaurants that balance appropriateness with cost consciousness. 5. Let clients lead on alcohol, never exceed 2 drinks maximum. 6. Understand travel day meal policies and timing boundaries. 7. Be extra careful with room service and expensive solo dining choices. And 8. Research international dining norms before traveling abroad. Remember, every meal choice is a judgment test. Your food and drink decisions reflect your priorities, your self-control, and your understanding of business appropriateness. In Module 6, we're going to talk about the foundation of everything we've covered, receipt management and documentation, because you can make all the right choices, but if you can't prove them or document them properly, you're still at risk. The paper trail doesn't just protect you, it builds your reputation as someone who has their act together. So, I'll see you in Module 6.